All right. I want to welcome everyone back to another episode of We Still Ain't Got Our Shit Together podcast.
Man cave mindset.
All right. Today we got a an episode where we're going to be discussing identity politics. Of course, as always, I'm your host John Wayne Willis Jr.
And you know it's your boy KJ. What's up with you?
Now, when it comes to identity politics, when was the first time you heard that term, Corey?
To be completely honest with you and everybody who's viewing, the day you text me,
All
identity
right.
politics. And the reason why is
Yo.
because not too many people really talk about it.
Yeah, that's
Or if they
true.
do talk about it, they talk about it in separate forms. Talk about politics in one way or talk about identity in another way. There's never a conversation to where it's they're both put together and it actually has a meaning to it. But not too many people know what the meaning is.
Yeah, that's real. I think for me, and you know what's funny? I heard about it based on Clubhouse, right? I mean, I've heard the term before, but
Mm-hmm.
not really dove into it. But I dove into it based on Clubhouse. So a couple weeks ago, I was in a group on Clubhouse where the title of the group was "Is Identity Politics Really Killing America?" Right? Question mark. And
Mm-hmm.
it stemmed from a group before that where it was ran by a couple of young Caucasian men who was discussing that identity politics was killing America and what America stands for, and that it was changing the landscape, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so apparently in the group, anybody that didn't agree with them, they were unhappy with. So when a lady came in and spoke, she was a PhD and spoke in the group. They gave her a chance to speak, and she kind of shut the group down, right? Like she went in, did her thing. Everybody just like left out after they ain't have nothing to say, and so her and one of her friends started another group that I end up joining, which was is it really killing America? And I wanted to really dive deep into the concept of what that is. So if you don't mind, I'm going to read it a little bit really quick. What it means. Identity politics is a term described as political approach wherein people of a particular religion, race, social background, class, orientation have identifying factors that develop political agendas and organize based upon interlocking systems of oppression that may affect their lives and come from their various identities. Identity politics centers the lived experience of those facing various systems of oppression to better understand the ways in which racial, economic, sexual based, and gender based and other forms of oppression are linked and ensure that political agendas and political actions arising out of the identity politics leave no one behind.
Mm.
I thought that was an interesting definition of what identity politics is. And for me, I noticed that it's been around forever, but only in a particular group.
Same way
What's
the
your thoughts?
conversation has probably been only in a particular group. Like the
Yeah.
conversation has probably been only in a particular group. I feel like when they use that term, it's only benefit them into what they feel and how they think, not to everything else around it. People
Yeah.
try to make that form to their need, basically.
Yeah. Um, I even think to go back to think of our Constitution was put together with identity politics in mind, right?
Hmm.
You think about rich, white landowners who want to control the economic and the political flow in the country, right? So when you look at the
Hmm.
Constitution, every man is created equal under the law, right? No, every white male that owned land was created equal under the law. And so you keep looking at the at what we see when it comes to the Constitution, And it just brings me to where we are now, especially after the events that transpired, and what we've seen, this just this past week, and what happened with Dante Wright, and what happened with the Army lieutenant out in Virginia, and it's a revolving door, the same circle. Go ahead. I didn't hear what you said.
I mean, people won't like my. I said it's tragic, and people won't like my answer or resolution to the situation. Me personally, I say, what do they care about more than anything? Okay, care about money,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
How can we hit their pockets? Okay, so we find a way to hit their pockets, or it's bad to say people don't go off of what I'm saying, but eye for an eye, blood for a blood. Once you, because if you go to Trinidad, Jamaica, or any of these other countries, when somebody does something that they know that it wasn't right, who's with the law or without the law, they still get punished. But the fact that is we have America where is the people that we pay our taxes to are better than the actual citizens. That's how it looks to me as a black man. I pay
Yeah.
you my taxes, but at the end of the day, you can harm me, threaten me, and take me away from my family just because you're upset that day. Your wife pissed you off, your girlfriend give you a nine. You never know.
Yeah.
It's because of whatever your emotions is at that time, and then the courts back you up behind it.
I mean, it's definitely plain as day that they are definitely being protected. Uh, and I think, to me, even if we want to speak about at least that faction alone, which is going to be the police or police brutality, that happens to be the only professional profession in which it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
make deadly mistakes, right? And I think that is the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my life, right? You're talking about a
Mm-hmm.
profession like a doctor. If you're a surgeon, right, and I accidentally scalpeled, the wrong artery, I'll sew them up. So
Or
what if
clip
they
a
die?
vein. Or, yeah.
A doctor happens to go ahead and lose his license and could potentially see jail time. You look at the military. If you commit war crimes within the military time, meaning if you do something wrong and you get caught, you are court-martialed. You will see jail time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a teacher and you slap a student or do whatever, even though that student's pissing you off, you will still be reprimanded. Something will happen
That's
in
still an
that
assault.
sense. And so this is the only place where you see where you have that ability to to be without any repercussions for actions, which is to me is super like outrageous. I've never seen anything like it, except in the United States Police, and I can only speak for what I know, and that's the United States. That's where I grew up, so I can only speak for that. But I think that it's interesting, and because of that, it brings me back to identity politics, right? And
Mm-hmm.
why I believe that it's actually super important. Um, when you think and you look at the definition, it talks about race, creed, religion, a lot of things that should be bringing people together, right? But what I've noticed in our country politically, there's only two powers, right? You got one or
Okay.
the other. We happen to have three known political groups, of course, the Democrats, the Republicans, and the Libertarian Party, but that's it, right? So we're a country full of different people, different creeds, different races, different religions, different ethnic groups, different everything. But yet, for some reason, everybody has to fall in line with one or the other, right? Versus really
Mm-hmm.
taking the idea of identity politics to heart and saying, hey, Corey, we have similar experiences. We have kids, and I don't want to see my kid in this situation, right? So, how about we have each other's interests at heart, and you end up seeing that you can create larger political groups, which could then exact change, right? You have to break down the system to then build the system back up. We keep looking at the concept of the system, and for me, the system hasn't changed. You started policing to then get black people back into slave areas. Let's keep that 100%, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about after Reconstruction.
But my main question is, why is it taking so long for them to change so many policies? What is the issue to where it is, okay, we have to wait 2 years before we're able to change the policy when we know a policy is corrupted? Let's get it done. Let's get it fixed. And people say that, it's on the president. It's not on the president. It's actually on the people inside your state. Your senates and all them. Your governor and all them. So it's best if we try to finagle it to where it suits us, because at this current moment, it's not suiting us black people at all. It's causing a major issue.
I'm going to say something, right? So you said, what takes it so long? Mm-hmm. You know what? Lack of follow through.
What?
Lack of follow through on us, right? You got to think about it. Take this year's presidential election, right? And as we speak about identity politics, who was the MVP of the Democratic Party this year? Black. It wasn't Biden. It wasn't Harris. Who was the MVP? She's in our state.
Was it Camilla? No.
Stacey.
Oh, Stacey, yes.
Stacey Abrams, right? Yeah. She's heralded the one who brought us through. The MVP of the Democrats for this past election, right? She got everybody out the vote. She was gung-ho. She was going. Could you imagine if that same positioning was done for a majority black political group?
Yes. I have an issue.
Why?
Because she has pulled that other people don't have.
Like what?
Sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, right?
So I'm going to ask a question. Like what?
So you saying, what does she have that other people that don't have?
Yeah.
She probably have other connections. She probably know people that we don't know. She probably can get in touch to people that we can't get in touch to.
So
when you do have people out here who's stopping black people from pushing to get to that next level.
So I don't disagree, right? But I also think that that's the narrative that identity pushes from the oppressor, right? It pushes to assimilate, right? So it pushes to assimilate. If we want to go all the way back and we want to have the discussion, right? We've always felt the grass is greener as a culture. Their grass has been greener as a culture. We have felt that way. Hold on. And so
others have, others haven't.
Okay, now hold on, bro. All right, so I'm gonna tell you why I say that. What was your mentality to make money? What was your mentality to make money? To do what?
Sell.
No. You were making money because of what reason? What is the major goal when you make money? When you make this money, what do you do? What do you do when you make money? When you, from the area that you grew up in, what do you do when you make money? Where do you go after you make money?
Basically, me being younger, what I did.
No. Hold on. You gotta listen to what I'm saying. When black people make money in certain areas, do they stay there? Yes or no?
A lot of them don't.
So yet again, they are moving to what areas?
Okay. So you're saying that they're moving to other areas after they make their money. They're moving into these Caucasian places, to these Asian-built places, to a lot of these other places to where
the grass they think is greener. So So yet again,
See. Okay. That's where we kind of differ because I understand you might think the grass is kind of greener, but when you look at this side, when you look at a certain side to where is they don't have as much, so they do more crimes to get what they need. But then when you look on the other side, they have everything they need, so they don't do crimes.
okay, so I'm not saying that, right? So I think that
Hmm.
you're misunderstanding that. What I'm saying is that the mentality of
People don't buy and spend black.
it's not just buy and spend black. There has been a narrative since integration. I want to put it that way, and before integration too, but really since integration, that the concept of moving out has been more important. Meaning, you Corey alone in a macro view might not feel that the grass is greener, but when you take a look at us as African Americans in the micro, like we're looking wide and far, and in between, the viewpoint of having the grass be greener
Hmm.
where other people are, you want to build that American dream. You want to have that house create equity. You want to make sure you buy a house at
Hmm.
230, and when you're ready to sell is at 430, 500,000, right? That's what you want. That's the constant
Yeah.
truth. But are you finding that in most African American areas? So when I say, do we think the grass is greener elsewhere? We have always said, hey, we need to integrate because they have better school systems. But even though we had better teachers, we had PhDs, master's degrees teaching African American children in school. Let's just keep that 100%. We had
Hmm.
that. But yet you still had regular bachelor degrees or whoever take the Gates test teachers at white schools. The only difference is they had better books or tests were taught towards them. But
No, I
then you
mean,
literally had
actually, well, actually, to I don't want to cut you off, but
mhm,
there is a difference. And the reason why I say it's a difference because, yes, you might have this black teacher who has a PhD, who might have a doctor's degree, but they have way more stress on their plate. So they can't cater to their students. But I guarantee you, you go to another Caucasian area, the areas develop more. They don't have that much to worry about. They don't have certain things to stress about. They have more care to tend to the kids. Perfect
so
example. I was just me and my wife was just looking at a school so our boys can go to private school or whatever.
mhm,
But we end up randomly meeting one of our son's friends, and we became friends with their parents or whatever.
mhm.
And they simply explained to us that one of the worst things they could have did was put their son in private school, and the reason why is because even though their son was passing, their son can read, their son academically is ahead of the other students, his attention span is a little shorter, so we'll like to hold him back an extra year. Are you kidding me? That doesn't make like how can you think the grass is greener when they're literally pulling 6 and 7 year olds back because they like to have fun more, but they're smarter than everybody else in the class.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop you because right now you're proving my point. So I agree with you, right? I'm not.
How?
I'm not. I'm not. What I'm saying is, you're speaking and saying that you guys were looking at a private school, right? You guys were looking at a private school for educational purposes, yes or no? So why were you looking at a
Yeah,
private school?
educational purpose. Yeah,
Because
educational purposes.
okay, educational purpose. So that the whole process we're just talking about, we're talking about education. We thought that their education process
Hmm.
was better than ours. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's 100% true. Now, yeah, you stopped, you talked
Well,
to
I
the
wouldn't
friend.
say it's better. I say that I
Go
wouldn't
ahead.
say it's better. I'll say that the classes are smaller, so the
Yes.
teachers are able to direct to the kids. That was our purpose to make sure that they had every advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Not that okay, private school better, they have better students, they have better this. Nah, we want to make sure that we give our child every opportunity. Because I would prefer a child to have a 10 seated class than a 15 to 20 seated class. Because now, out of 15, two or three students or five students are going to disrupt. But if you have a size of a 10, you might have one and he's able to be separated to not disrupt the full class.
I don't disagree. I agree with you. What I am saying is that you now thought that. Do you guys still think that you want to send your kid to private school?
Yes, but not to a predominantly Caucasian school, to be honest with you.
Okay,
That was
fair
my issue
enough.
from the jump. I didn't want him. I didn't want them to go to a predominant Caucasian school that was private school. I wanted them to go to a mixed culture school
Now,
that's
I
private.
think I think like I said again, I still agree that we were saying the same thing, right? So what you're
Hmm.
saying is that you personally, as macro, meaning small, singular event, did not want your child to do this. And when I'm speaking, I'm not speaking as a singular event. I'm speaking
Hmm.
from a broad view, like the spectrum. And so you have a lot of people who sometimes think that was the case. Now I'm talking about the '60s when we're talking about integration versus
Oh, well,
segregation,
back
right?
then probably
And
yes.
so what I was
Hmm.
saying was when you have teachers of that caliber teaching class. I remember my dad told me a story. He was like, the reason he went into science was because of his PhD teacher. You see what I'm saying? His ability to learn and to teach
Hmm.
at a level that another high school teacher wouldn't have been able to give him somewhere else, right? And so you people think that a white private school indicates better education and learning abilities. I think that the difference is that you see them graduate at a higher rate based on a lot of different factors. Our schools still had the best and the best and the brightest of the brightest mixing in with everybody, right? And so when you think about that as a
Hmm.
concept, having the best of the best, regardless of where you were, if you're the best athlete at this school, you bring me up, right? If if you're the best academic person
Hmm.
there, I got to now be brought up. But the minute that we're allowed to separate you, you gonna catch my drift now? I'm allowed to separate Corey. So Corey's a great academic
Yeah.
person and athlete. So you know what? Hey, Miss 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 Corey's mom. You know, Corey's a great guy. He runs a 4.5. He hits really hard and he makes straight A's. We would love for him to come here with these smaller class sizes and play football and graduate from this school and he'll have greater opportunities. And then that became a norm, right? And so
Hmm.
people began to believe. It hasn't been to recently that we as parents have looked into the conversation, is those schools really better for our children or not? And so what I'm talking about is the actual track to where we are now, right? We thought that the
Hmm.
grass was greener. So when people made money, they left. You didn't buy back in. You didn't buy stores. But in the '60s, those corner stores, guess who they were owned by? Black people. Your teachers was black.
Yeah.
Your lawyers was black. Your policemen were black in your areas. Everybody was black in your areas, and they were thriving. Ownership was at an all-time high in the '60s for homes. Don't nobody talk about that. People own
Yeah.
houses, whole blocks. Black people own houses, whole blocks. You look at West End Atlanta. We live in Georgia. That was all owned by black people. People that taught at Morehouse Spelman, Morris Brown, all of that.
But see,
Like,
I got one word for you though. I got
yeah.
one word. It's called
And what's that?
gentrification.
Boy, that started way later, man. Come on. That started
Absolutely, it
after that
started
started
later.
after all the people was like, that grass is greener over there in Gwinnett County.
But see, we literally, you're absolutely right about that. But years later passed, people started to get money, people started to buy different areas. Now they want to do gentrification, and now you have other people who have more money than some of these black people, and they're buying them out. They're they're making it to where it's difficult because they don't have that amount of money to purchase it back or to get it from them.
Nah, they don't. But the
So it
concept is
makes it a
we
little more
we
it
allowed
makes it a
that
little more
though.
difficult.
We allowed that though. We allowed that. We allowed gentrification to happen. You want to put it in
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah. I mean, absolutely,
Now, don't get me wrong.
absolutely.
Don't let me say that everything is on us. It doesn't mean that play the powers that be weren't at play, right? You talk
They
about the
play their
crack
part.
era.
Yeah,
You
they
talk
played
about
their
the
part
crime
too.
bill. You talk about all of that being put in place, but that right there is more reason for us to have this ability to coincide with something like identity politics to create change for us. Why are we not creating a political group that has the black man's interest at heart, the black woman's interest at heart, the black child's interest at heart, right? And becoming a major player. Because at the end of the day, we can become major players. If we were to think about how much you thought about the black buying power after 2018, right? And let's
Hmm.
talk a little bit about Black Panther. Every black person in America went to go see Black Panther. That first weekend was like
Absolutely.
$1 billion weekend. Everybody like, yo, the black
Me and
buying
my whole
power is
family went
huge.
there.
Black buying power is huge, right? So now we're looking at
Hmm.
that. We can still take that uniformity and create something like a political group that can be ran by whoever we need to put in place to have a thought of that. But yet our alliances as black people are to parties that have no interest for us at heart. So the Democrats or the Republicans don't do anything for black people at all.
Yeah, you're
You want to
absolutely
put
right
that
about
in
that.
perspective,
You're
right?
absolutely right.
Everybody's always like, and I think I was talking to somebody the other day and I was getting on like, yo, every time Charlamagne got somebody on the Breakfast Club, that's a political thing doing what you call it. Well, what you gonna do for black folks, right? Well, what's your plan for black
Hmm.
folks, right? What is our plan for us? At what point do we say, hey,
I got, I got a question for you there.
mm-hmm,
I got a question for you. Okay, so technically, okay. My first question is, what is your opinion on black people getting respiration? We talking politics and we talking
yeah,
history.
so
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 yeah,
so
most
so
definitely.
if you're going to bring up reparations, right?
Hmm.
I am not for or against it. You know what I mean? I don't. I'm not saying that I think it's something that's necessarily needs to happen. I think if any type of reparations do happen, it should be community based. I mean, pouring in funds into black communities, schools, youth centers, the ability to have training, uh, therapy for trauma, that's where for me reparations to go versus saying, hey, pay out John Willis, his 40 acres and a mule, right? If that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um,
But see, it does make sense. Yes, it do.
mm,
My next question for you is, well, if you do agree with it, how would you dish out the reparations?
every black person in America
Reparations.
has their debt paid off.
Okay, that's another way. I thought a
So
little
I mean, you
different.
asked me how I would have it paid out, right?
Hmm.
Every black person at that point gets to start with a clean slate, right? Clean slate, meaning if you owe 100,000, 50,000, 25,000, whatever you owe that's stopping you from being able to jump into that ability to create wealth, which is usually our debt. Like if you want to buy a
Hmm.
house and your debt to income ratio isn't matching, you can't buy a house. You see what I'm saying? Even if you got
Yeah.
that 680 credit score, if you owe 200,000 and you only make 38,000, but you've been paying steadily, you see what I'm saying? Even though you might have enough to go ahead and pay the payments, you might be at zero at the end of every month. They're not giving you a house because of that debt to
Hmm.
income ratio. But if you ain't got no debt and you make 38,000, yo, might be able to buy $175,000, $180,000 home, get you a nice little townhouse somewhere. That creates equity. You see what I'm saying? So if you ask me how I would do it, I would just pay off everybody's debt. Everybody would start zero, and then create money economic programs so that you would learn how to then prepare yourself for creating wealth. That would be my way. What about you? How would you then handle that topic?
See, me personally, I thought a little different. I thought of, okay, we need to have a cutoff date. Cutoff date is, let's say, is 2000. Anybody who was born before 2022. I mean, anybody who was born after 2022 doesn't have reparations. Now,
Why?
everybody I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna tell
Okay.
you why.
All
Because
right.
everybody who was before 2022, you're getting you're getting a school loan, meaning you're getting enough for a scholarship. You got to maintain, I guess, a B average, or I guess the maintain a 3.0. You whatever your debt is cut by in half. So now your debt isn't as large. You do have a school scholarship, and if you're a kid, it makes it to where is you have you don't have any debt for one. Two, you get a normal credit score, in which a normal credit score should start off at 670. Cool, no problem. You're right at fair. You're not. You still have some type of credit to start off once you do turn 18. If you want to buy your car, or if you want to get your credit card, if you want to build yourself. But as a kid, once you get old enough and you're like, okay, I'm going to college, you get a certain amount. Let's say how much is 4 years in a college
Uh, it
average?
varies. I mean, it's probably a hundred thousand for the 4 years
Okay,
average.
so average. So you get $100,000 scholarship because you're maintaining a 3.0 average. You're going to college, and you don't have any debt now. So now, once you do get into society, 18, 19, 20, you already have a foot stepped into it. So I'm not giving you no money. I'm not taking nothing from you. I'm actually helping you. I'm cutting your debt in half. I'm making sure that you have a scholarship, and I'm making sure that your credit score is good enough to where you're able to build it. You're able to keep it going. You're able to put
So
yourself in a certain position.
so I think for me, I would have a few things wrong with that. One, you're putting stipulations on something that it's owed, right? Regardless of how you want to put it, it's something that's owed, right? So when you say a college scholarship,
Is
it
it
has to
old
make.
to somebody who hasn't been born yet?
I mean, well, it's owed to a people. It's owed to anybody that has grown up with slave PSD. I mean, come on. I mean,
Absolutely.
it goes, and the thing is this: it goes well beyond slavery. It goes into Jim Crow. It goes into my parents' generation. It trickles down into today's generation. It trickles down into the police force. It has not stopped as of yet, right? So when you take a look at it,
Okay, so
and you
that's a good
wonder,
point.
hold on, and you wonder why the aggression is so high for the same traffic stop, but you happen to be an African American, right? And I think that that's where the concept goes. This stuff
Hmm.
is so deep rooted, it is so ingrained, it is so conditioned, right? That when they see Corey,
Hmm.
it's fight or flight, regardless of what you want to think about it. That is conditioning. So to speak about what somebody should or shouldn't be owed, that child that's going to be born into somebody that's coming from that, you see what I'm saying, is already at a disadvantage because the parental figure isn't already good enough to deal with the concept of having a child from a clean slate. It's like the same reason why when people win the lottery, more than half go broke.
So
It's
do
because
you
you
think
don't
that we
understand
need
how to
free
handle it.
therapy then? So
Huh?
do you think black people need free therapy?
Yeah,
Free
I mean
therapy
that's why it was part of my thing.
from the state.
Pay off all the debt. I need children programs. I need people to invest into black communities and systems for kids to grow and to build themselves up, right? To me, that's
Hmm.
reparations. You are now trying to correct the issue of the past. If you're not trying to correct
But
the
my
issue of the
issue for
past,
that is,
go
but
ahead.
see, what my issue with that is, okay, let's say you don't have any debt now. but you don't have a credit score. You still can't get shit.
Yo, time out. If you ain't got no debt and you ain't got a credit score, if you pay rent, you can tell your rental company to go ahead and report to each of the credit bureaus. That's credit every month. If you ain't got debt, get you a secure credit card and create start using that for gas every month. You can create credit. My issue is it's not the fact that we can't do these things, it's the fact that we want the help versus doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept comes down to, I like I said earlier, like I'm okay if it happens and I'm okay if it doesn't. My goal is to reach back and teach two, and for them to reach back and teach three, and for them to reach back and teach six. And so that, I mean, the conversation for me when it comes to it, and it goes back to this point of identity, right? Who do we identify with?
Mm-hmm.
What are we identifying in, right? And so if I'm identifying as a black man and you're identifying as a black man, and I see a kid that's also identifying as a black man, and I see a girl that's identifying as a black woman, it's my responsibility to always be in that position to teach them, if that makes sense. And so going forward, I mean, there's nothing else that I can't do without that process. You on mute. I don't know if you meant to do that.
Yeah, I did for just one
Oh,
second. Yeah, I
okay.
did. But I mean, you got valid points. I mean, we both have valid points on it. And which it doesn't happen overnight. I might
Never.
have things that's wrong. You might have things that's wrong. But at the same time, we have to. That's the whole point of having an organization coming together and creating the ideas and getting it out there to our people.
Nah, I mean, but that to me, I think is the biggest glaring thing. I want to say something. I think that was interesting that I heard inside of that clubhouse, and as we speak about the world in black and white, right?
Hmm.
It was a young lady that came on who happened to be Native American, right? And this was the first time that I had to not look at the world as black and white. And we talked about the U.S. and we talked about how if identity politics is really killing the U.S. or not. And she said, everybody talks about United States as if it's black or white, but before the blacks, it was us, right, the native people of this land that received the oppression and the annihilation, and then receive the U.S. as an occupied state. They don't recognize the U.S. as a full country. They recognize them as an occupying state, right? For their
Hmm.
lands, and that just furthermore put it in perspective, where why are we not visibly looking at this as identity for all of us, right? They have a say. There
Hmm.
is a group that has oppressed and has oppressed every single other group here and continues to oppress every other group. We look at the Asians and having the issues, after COVID, right? How asinine is it to say, hey, because you're of Asian descent, it's your reason COVID is here? Like, that's asinine. And then you have
Hmm.
people go through that process. And then you look at the mistreatment of African Americans, and then you look at the mistreatment of the Native Americans. Why have we all not come to the identity? And as again inside of the definition, um, it
Okay.
says it says based on racial, economic, sex, gender, and other forms of oppression. So that means the identities only matter because of the original group that oppresses. Go ahead, see. Go ahead, Kay. You got this.
You want to know why? It's a difference between black, Asian, Hispanic, Korean, whoever. A lot of them got paid what was owed. A lot of them caught reparations. A lot of them got things that we still haven't got. Like point
Okay.
blank period, Asians, you on your taxes or on your files, you can say
Mhm.
I'm Native American, and you can get a whole different situation brought to you. Same thing with Hispanics. They have adjusted and accommodated for every other race, but black people. Like I understand, we no, I don't understand because we are 33% of the population, but we are 33% of the incarcerated population too. So I
It's on
do. So
purpose.
it is on purpose. So it's
Mhm.
hard for me personally as a black man to understand. Hey, yeah, we're all different colors, but your family has got paid what's owed. Our family hasn't at the end of
All
the
right.
day. And I understand that we all need to come together, but people do have to admit and acknowledge that we still haven't made it to even half the way that they have made it.
So
I mean,
I
that's just
ag-
being honest about it.
I know and I agree, but the one thing that I will say to this positioning is that each of the other races do have a leg up on us, and I'll tell you why. Um, Most of them came by choice. All right.
Absolutely.
So when we talk about the concept that it's not meant to say that the concept is, their oppression is any worse or not than African American people, but they were able to stick together. Like you have whole parts of Georgia that still use, Korean wording on stores, right? In that entire area. You Hispanics.
Gwinnett County has a whole
Yeah,
Asian
we already
city,
know.
bro.
Already know. Well, I got a homeboy that live in the area. What I'm saying is,
Yeah.
when you look at people and you want to bring up the concept of identity, their identity for self preservation is there because their identity to move here together was the process, right? When you look at us, and there's a
They
reason
had
why
a
we haven't
choice.
really been able to to organize in the way that I would love to see identity politics pull for us, right? And I keep bringing it back to that because it would mean
Hmm.
that culturally, economically, scientifically, we move the United States as a people, and I want to put that in perspective. When every time you change the gear in your car, that was a black man. You feel me? Every time that gear changed in your
Hmm.
car, that was a black man.
Every time you
Every
buy
time every
peanut
time
butter,
you pick up your cell phone, every time you do something of note, we are involved.
every time you flick a light switch.
So I'm going to put in perspective. If we were not the main group to keep unorganized, they wouldn't have power. And so, with that being said, it's been in the same exact concept since we landed here from the first boat going forward, and then even with other people of brown skin that comes over, it's their identity to make sure that our identity politics does not take place. Does
Hmm.
that make sense? And
That
so
makes a lot of
that's
sense.
exactly why we need it to take place. I mean, when if if you think about all the power that we have as a collective, yeah, I get that they got most of the wealthiest people, but the power is in the people. That's the truth. If there were no black votes for any of the two the two, that makes it an even race,
Hmm.
bro. And then it's the same
Yeah.
way you look at Fred Hampton. When other people start seeing us coming together and resonating, that same concept of oppression comes together and creates something pretty great. It's just an interesting topic. I think as I think about it, as identity politics goes forward. Something that I want to pay closer attention to as time goes along, because I don't want to be one of those people that just talk about it and don't really try to make move on it or
Do
do anything
something
like
about it.
that, because I mean it starts in our areas. It starts where we are, right? It starts South Georgia. It starts right here in the concept of are we taking our interests at heart, right? Are we making sure our areas that we're living in are being represented by the people that we want to represent us, right? Because what's funny about it, if the chief position and the sheriff position are political positions, those guys are voted in. And so, you can begin
Yeah,
to
they
exact
actually
change
are.
in your own personal areas whenever you decide to take identity politics to heart and decide who you're going to put in, right? Does this person meet our identity? If not, we ain't having you in this area. And so that has to be a concept where, we begin to start going back to community meetings. We begin to go to the meetings at City Hall. We begin to put ourselves in a place in which we can gather and do something like that.
I mean, but the only issue that I'm having is Muslims. They tried it. Malcolm
Mm-hmm.
X technically. They technically tried it with him. They technically tried to put him as a limelight. We using him as our golden child. He value what we value. He represent what we represent. And look what happened. His own people turned around and tried to kill him. So it's kind of hard for you have to have somebody to want to take up this mantle
Mm-hmm.
when you never know. It might be the one who's right next to you who just got paid $500,000 to clear their debt and to move their family somewhere else to kill you.
Man, that's
So it's kind of
interesting.
hard to have that though.
Yo, that's super interesting that you brought that up, right? And
Hmm.
I think that we're both speaking from a place of having a family and being fathers and being put in position where you have people to protect, right? And
Absolutely.
it was so funny 'cause I just spoke about it with Austin literally the other day because I did a check in with him and we talked and I said to become that type of leader, it is very hard having a family, right? It's very hard to put yourself in a position to have yourself taken away. Now, I will say to your point when it came to Malcolm, one of the hardest things for us as a culture to do is to, in religion, which is another subsect, right? You had Martin on one end who
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
Christian, and then you had Malcolm on another end that was Muslim. But
Muslim. Yeah.
you gotta take that as something that wasn't a totality for the whole. You had two people preaching two
Hmm.
messages of independence and freedom in two different ways, right? But then the largest religion in the
Hmm.
United States is Christianity, right? And Malcolm's viewpoint wasn't necessarily the viewpoint that most Christians were willing to take or even had the balls enough to be a
To.
part of.
Hmm.
And so, you
And
know,
see, like, look, I'm a Christian. I'm well,
mhm,
technically Baptist. So for me to say, hey, I know you have your values and what you think, and I know I have my values on what I think. At the end of the day, we don't have to change that. But what we do have to say is we both are black. We both have black mothers. We both have a long black line of history. We
mhm,
need to make sure our people can succeed our success or even do way better than us and put them in a better position. That's why it's like people be astonished when a person like me is able to use Malcolm X as a example, and because yes, we might be two different religions, but his message was technically the same. Same way with Martin Luther King.
yeah,
His message, their message were the same, just they went about it two different ways. So we need to bring
yeah.
that together, and we need to go one direct way to it. Personally,
I think that would be sublime, right? And the reason why it would
I
be
do.
great is because that would mean that you could identify with more than one thing with being able to put not necessarily one above the other, but yeah, one above the other, right? So when we listen to identity
Mm-hmm.
politics, one was religion, right? And that's usually number one in most
Mm-hmm.
people's homes, right? Is religion.
Most
Secondarily, you're
definitely.
black, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if you could put the needs of the culture or the needs of the race or the needs of the people, you know, to truly receive that form of equality that people are looking for, you would be putting yourself in that position that would say that before I am Christian, I am black. Before I am Muslim, I am black. Before I am, you know, a different sexual orientation, I am black. You see what I'm
Whatever.
saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
having that be the constant would be amazing because it doesn't mean that you can't be any of those other things, right? What it means is now that you have a seat at the table
Mm-hmm.
and you can then start to chip away truthfully at reevaluating, you know, the laws in the land of of which we live by that allows our supposed people that are here to protect to not allow them to protect an entire faceted of people, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's like I said, it's still baffling to me to be the only profession that you know deals with life or death that's allowed to make so many mistakes. But the only issue is that the mistakes just are glaringly against another
Human
color of people.
laws and
Like,
culture.
yeah, I mean, the thing is this: you would have an issue with police brutality regardless if it was everybody getting effed up, right? Let's keep it real.
Yeah.
If
Mm-hmm.
everybody was getting messed up, but then when you see the case of a guy that shoots somebody, you know, goes up and shoots up an entire massage parlor, you got the pictures of the kid that goes and shoots up an entire church, and you got video proof of a white male being able to argue belligerently with police and their ability to be calm within the situation is there to see a drunk guy run around and steal a cop car and still not get killed and be taken in and be like, yo, he just had a rough night. It is the images. It is the images that are given. A routine traffic stop. Yo, is that a counterfeit 20? Yo, you got a misdemeanor, bro. Not a violent crime, but a misdemeanor. Like, I want to
Yeah.
scratch my head here. We're not talking about a warrant for a violent crime. We're talking about a misdemeanor, bro. Like, I just want to put that out there, right? And so you're coming
And the bad part about
already
it is
prepared for that
you could
concept.
have got that fake 20 from a gas station. You could have got that fake 20 from a gas station from change. And now you got a misdemeanor. You didn't even know.
And so and
But I'm
so
listening to you. I'm
yeah,
just
I mean, no, I know.
reiterating
I'm
on it.
just saying, like, it's crazy, and it's crazy for me to think that people don't see it, right? And so when you see this,
Mm-hmm.
the concept of identity politics should mean even more to you, knowing that if you want to exact change, where you are the majority, it starts, right? Where you are the majority, it starts. And
Yeah.
that identity politics can then put you in a position where, you know, when your kid leaves, you're not that afraid. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
kid called his mom. I just want to put that out there, right? His mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it just pains me to see that concept, and then also him not knowing how to react based on the villainy and trauma that he sees every time he sees a police officer. I mean, he probably lost his mind completely in that moment. You see what I'm saying? There was no way because, you know, I always ask myself, I think about our consent conversation. that we had with Dr. G, right?
Most definitely, most definitely.
And I was thinking about where for women that initial fright comes from, right? And it is the
Hmm.
conditioning that every time they see, something played in mainstream media for assault, it's a man on a woman, right? Even though they might not have particularly been put in the position of assault before, but that fear is so crippling at that moment based on what has been received. And I take a look at, my black brothers, especially my young black brothers, and I feel like that's part of the same, right? I've dealt with police, you've dealt with police, and it could have been any of us at any given moment. But also, who's there to teach them? You see what I'm saying? Who's there telling you,
Hmm.
you got to be calm under this situation? Like I think I watched the show on ESPN, and the basketball coaches played a skit, right, of what to do if you get pulled over and the cop is aggressive with you, right? and
Hmm.
and that dawned on me that they're taking the role of people's fathers, right, and putting that in position and saying,
Hmm.
hey, this can really go left, and I don't care how bad your temper is
But
at
see,
this
bro,
moment.
let's be
Yeah,
honest.
go ahead.
But see, bro, let's be honest. All right, so with that veteran, I think it was in Minnesota, right?
Nah, the veteran was in.
Um,
Nah, he wasn't. So he was active duty, corporal or lieutenant of the medical corps in Virginia. Go ahead.
in Virginia. Okay, so when you watch that video, he had his hands out.
Mm-hmm.
He was calm. He said, "Hey, like I didn't do anything. Like what is going on? Can you explain to me what did he say? You're about to ride the lightning." First of all, he had his taser drawn to him. Second of all, he didn't tell him what.
What he got stopped for?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for me to agree with. Hey, when you get by a police officer, or a police officer stop you, you're supposed to do this or react this way. When at the end of the day, your life has a higher chance of being taken.
So
Regardless, he did everything that you supposed to do, and
mm-hmm.
he still got assaulted. He still got pepper sprayed. He still got threatened with his life. He was scared for his life. He had his arms out the window saying, I am scared. I don't want to get my seatbelt. And the officer was still aggressive. So it's like, how can we tell our kids or our families, hey, to act this way when it's still going to go the other way regardless?
I'll say this much, right? So the only difference between that situation and the kid situation is one was assaulted and one was murdered. I rather my kid be assaulted, talk bad, do whatever you want, but he makes it home, right? And so the
But I
conversation
feel like
to
the only
me,
reason why he wasn't murdered is because he had his uniform on. Only
nah,
reason why he didn't get a bullet put in him, his uniform, bro.
okay,
That
so
that makes a difference.
I'm not gonna negate that fact, right? I won't say that. I won't say that. What I will say is that regardless of how you looked at it, how aggressive they were in them using pepper spray instead of the taser or the gun had a lot to do with
Actual
his
firearm.
diffusal of the situation, right? So regardless of how you look at it, he's able to sue and he should win big by far. Um, because yet again, it's the same concept over and over again, seeing these things. And it's not enough to just say it's one bad apple or two bad apples anymore. It's too frequent, right? It's way
Hmm.
too frequent to say it's one bad apple or two apples.
Hmm.
But I think that it still deals with the majority of the time for our kids to make it home, right? You are in a position where you're not allowed to act erratically because the person with training gets to act erratically, right? And so what I mean by that is saying
Hmm.
is they still have to have this training from us based on the fact is yes, they could lose their life but the chances in any chance encounter with them not becoming aggressive puts them in a position to walk away versus
Okay, well,
go ahead.
well, I mean, so look, we can agree to disagree on this one because I didn't see multiple videos of the black male that wasn't aggressive. The officer was. The officer take it to that next level.
Yes.
And so when you say, "Hey, you don't think it's the uniform," I personally do because
No,
it's the
I
same
said you're
way when the
probably. I said I
video.
can't say that you're not right. I said I can't say that you're not right.
Okay, I'm about to
Yeah.
say because it's the same way with the video. Dude had a traffic stop, talking to the officer. He was trying to explain to him normal conversation. They were on the side of the road.
Oh
The
yeah.
next officer pulled up, choked him, threw him on the ground, and beat the hell out of him. And it's like there's too many frequent of, hey, this is how a black man is supposed to act. Hey, be this way, be that way, and we still getting the hell beat out of us. And that's where it makes it to where it is okay. But when you have another black man, but he's in a military uniform, you want to act a certain way. You're still going to act like a fucking ass, but you want to be a nicer ass. Like, hey, instead of me grabbing my gun, I'm gonna pull my taser out because I know I might lose my job or I might go to jail. It's just it's it's saddening and it's aggravating and it makes you angry because it's like, do you have to act the way they act to cause a difference? Do you have to
See,
be?
I
Do you
think
have to
that
do what they do? Eye for an
I
eye, blood for
think I
blood.
think I think that that is a slippery slope, and I think that we could definitely have a podcast about it because I don't know if I'm in the right headspace to talk about that directly on live right now because I know that I would be all over the place because I agree with you, right? I agree with you 100%. Like if you do it the right way 100 times, you get slapped 100 times. Do you turn around for the 101 time and let that person slap you again, right?
Absolutely.
So so
hmm
so my only issue with that is that I think if that was the case, right,
hmm
we would open ourselves up to an even larger open season on us. Meaning, if you hunt, that's open season, right? It's
hmm
there, but I mean, we're talking about because to me, Blue is the largest gang in the world. Don't get me wrong, Blue.
Not larger than society.
Hold on. But
Larger than
society does
society.
not have what it takes to stand up. Truthfully, as of yet.
Yeah.
As of
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah. I mean,
As
as
of
of yet,
yet.
it's
As of
boiling
yet.
because you see every murder they happen, they burn down a fucking city. Like
Now,
every
now,
murder that has happened, something like it's gonna hurt.
the quickest way to see these type of reforms that we want is to organize inside of identity politics to then disrupt what is used to being done to the American people because you can beat them at their own game because you're right. They are big, but they're not bigger than society. So if society comes together
hmm
as a whole with identifying and now saying, hey, we no longer will take this. We can now vote every single one of you out. Together, our money is just as
hmm
powerful as your 1%.
hmm
And so that's what makes identity politics so amazing as a conversation to listen to people and not really hear out of either of those two conversations that why identity politics needs to be taken further. Because that right there is the difference to me. We identify with the same thing. Our fear is the same. Doesn't mean that our outcome to how we deal with it is the same, but the fear is the same, right? The
hmm
fear is exactly the same. I'm afraid for your boys just as much as you are. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? When they
Absolutely.
start driving and we talking and you like, yeah, man, I'm finna go get them this car. That same fear you have, I'm gonna have, because look, I know you. We're cool. We understand each other. So at the end of the day, if they get stopped, I would never want them to be in that situation, right? Does that make sense? And I look at myself.
Absolutely
I look at my daughter who's outspoken, right? And I could just be afraid for her to say some crazy stuff. She's gonna be like, "You pigs can't touch me," and then something happens. So I say that at the end of the day, that for me, and this is gonna be, one of my last statements on this, is we need to look deeper into what identity politics is for us as a community and as a minority in this country. And if we can find power inside of this term in which we call identity politics. And I'm going to end on that one, Corey. You can go ahead and drop us off whatever you want to right now.
All right. Personally, I do want to say this. I don't want to promote violence. I don't want to say, hey, they kill somebody, you kill somebody. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want people to take my words and to bring it that way. What I do want to say is something has to change. It's going to get to that point where I'm not going to be the only one that feel that way or to think that way. I'm not going to be the only one. You're going to have a lot of other people who's going to be angry and they're going to want to be out for it. So we need to find a way to help our people, our family, so we can avoid that situation. We do not want to hurt anybody. We don't want anybody to get hurt. And we want to avoid it. But it wouldn't be right of us if we wasn't speaking on it personally. We have to speak on it on all different type of looks or avenues, or we would be out the loop and be like astonished that, hey, I didn't think that this would happen. When at the end of the day, is right now it's not hunt be hunt. It's just being hunted.
All right.
And I'm gonna end it on that one.
On that, y'all, has been another episode of We Still Ain't Got Our Shit Together podcast.
You know the man cave mindset.
Yo, and we out.